If I am. I think we've got one person watching. So far, I'm testing out a new mobile microphone. It's worked so far with non-live recordings. Please let me know if it's working out for this conversation. So, let's get situated here. See if I can pull up the screen so I can read your comments. See the setup I'm using. I'm doing this live Q&A on my phone, using that as the camera, and then I'm using my laptop to read your comments. Here we go. Got the laptop open. So please let me know if you can hear me in the comments. That would be much appreciated. Guy S says, greetings, Coach. Guy, please let me know if you can hear me. Loud and clear? Perfect. Sweet. It works. Man, I really need to do a gear review on this particular microphone. It's wireless. It's just this one little thing. There's no receive box or anything like that. It's great. I tested it out in my recent video on speed bag work. And that's going to be a problem to microphone videos while doing speed bag work because it's very loud, especially in my gym with the terrible acoustics. And so being able to hit the speed bag and talk at the same time and be able to be heard is kind of amazing. You can't even do that with a, what do you call it, a boom mic. A boom mic actually just makes it worse. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Welcome to this edition of Q&A with the Live. This is Ramsey Dewey here in Shanghai, China. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Ask questions and I may have some answers for you. Hello from Okinawa. Hello, my friend Andy C. in Okinawa. How are you doing? I'm doing well. It's a beautiful afternoon here in Shanghai, China. What is my favorite food? First question of the day. Great. Man, I don't know. Probably steak, to be honest. Why am I bald all the time? I went bald over 20 years ago. Fun fact about baldness. Did you know that eventually most adult human males go bald? It's true. 20% of men go bald by age 20, 40% by age 40, 60% by age 60, and so on. It's directly proportional to age. I got a weird, what do you call that? A weird ad. I was watching a YouTube video earlier today, and an ad for baldness prevention popped up, like, you can cure baldness. It's not about genetics. It's not about your genes. It's not about anything like that. It's because you don't know the secret that I'm going to sell you for only $29.95. Where's the nearest temple where I live? I assume you mean Temple of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of which I'm a member. You know what? I don't know. And here's why. Because it was last year announced that they would set up a provisional temple in Shanghai, China, but only with limited use and only for Chinese members because of there's some weird restrictions in China as far as religion goes. Outside of that, like a temple that is available to the general membership of the church, probably it's kind of equidistant between Hong Kong and Taiwan and Korea, I believe. Anyway, enough about that. What are the cons of living in China? I really enjoy living in China. What are the cons? Man, I'm going to have to think about that one. I would say the pros far outweigh the cons, to be honest. Have I done voice acting? I have. I have done voice acting before. Is this a job offer? If you're offering me a job in voice acting, please let me know. I have to get into voice acting. The thing about voice acting is that it's not a 9-to-5 job. You get a job offer once in a while, and that's about it. Am I going to fight again? I've been retired from professional fighting since the year 2011. I've discussed this extensively on my channel and the reasons why. I do want to talk about this. This last week I went to the Shanghai UFC Performance Institute for the first time. If you're not aware, the UFC set up its largest performance institute in the world here in Shanghai. There's actually two. There's one in Las Vegas, there's one here in Shanghai. It's a very different thing than the UFC gym. If you don't know the difference, the UFC gym is a public gym. Anybody can go in and sign up. The UFC Performance Institute is an institute specifically to help train the fighters. And so had this fun experience. Got to go in there and train with the fighters and spar with those guys. I got to get in the cage and spar with Li Jingliang. He's getting ready for a fight in October. Man, it's almost October, isn't it? Is there a performance institute in Shenzhen? No, currently there are only performance institutes in Las Vegas and Shanghai. What's my social credit score? You don't know what that means. There are dozens and dozens of different companies that keep social credit scores. There's no single social credit score. I could ask you the same thing. What's your social credit score? You probably don't know. You probably didn't even know that you have one. You have one on Facebook. You have one on literally every website that you frequent. You have social credit scores with pretty much every government agency. Man, regardless of where you live, there are social credit scores. Anyway, enough about that. Somebody said something along the lines of, hard sparring gives me performance anxiety. Yeah, it should. Hard sparring isn't great. Most of your sparring should not be hard sparring. Hard sparring is a once in a while type of thing. It's not a do it every day thing. Man, hard sparring is going to shorten your career. For every hard sparring session you get into, that's essentially one less fight you're going to be able to do. You ever seen those dudes from Thailand who have like 300 fights under their belt? There are a lot of those guys, a ton of them. It's pretty average, regular, run-of-the-mill fight records for professional fighters in Thailand, 200, 300 fights. And is Winnie the Pooh banned in China? No. I don't know where you got that idea. That's kind of silly. Winnie the Pooh. But what was I saying? Yeah, if you get into a bunch of hard sparring matches, the more damage you take in training, the less damage you're going to be able to take in fights. So spend your training time learning to fight. Spend your fighting time competing. Go hard in the cage. Train smart in the gym. Anyway, we have a bunch of questions I'm missing. Repeating the obvious here. Will I do more no-gi submission videos? Yeah, absolutely. If you're not aware, I've got an ongoing series on all the triangle chokes, but you guys probably want to learn more than just triangle chokes. Throwing side kicks from the Philly shell? Yeah, Philly shell is basically a side stance, and yes, you can throw side kicks from there, you can throw back kicks from there. I got a whole video on that. It's called Stances! Exclamation point. Go check it out. Laced Up is excited about seeing his first Ramsey live stream in Australia. Sweet, got some Aussies in the house. Welcome. Do I prefer grappling or striking? Yes. What other questions do we have? Do I recommend competing amateur if you don't plan on being a pro? Well, that depends. Do you want the experience of competing? If you want the experience of competing, yeah, sure, do it. If you're not interested in competition, no! Thank you, Captain Obvious, Coach Ramsey, for that answer. Right? But seriously, do what you want to do. A lot of men and boys feel societal pressure to do manly things, right? Like fight and compete. And if that's not what you want to do, you don't have to. There are other things you can do with your life. What are the biggest misconceptions the Westerners have about China? Oh, man, that's a good question. I get some pretty crazy comments on my YouTube channel every time, because my videos generally start out like this. Hi, it's Ramsey Dewey here in Shanghai, China. And then a lot of people get mad. And they're like, what? China? But I've heard all of these things about China, and I'm mad and I hate you because you're in China and you don't hate China like I do. So there's a lot of rumors out there. There's a lot of manufactured narratives out there. A lot of people trying to, I don't know, cause a ruckus, destabilize the world. And a lot of people becoming unwitted pawns in the schemes of these big corporations. Do I have a Chinese name? And I have several Chinese names. When I was fighting here in China, they gave me a different Chinese name every time I went in the ring. I just remember a few of them, like, I remember once they called me Lao Chi Du Wan. And what else? They've called me Ray Ji, Ray Shi, and just Du, for Dewey, and so on. Du Lincoln. Lincoln is my middle name. Lincoln is, they're Chinese phonemes, basically. And we're getting a lot of questions about China. Yep. Hippie bashing machine, that is how you write it in Chinese characters. Du Lincoln. Okay. What are the biggest culture shocks I found living in China? Man, I don't think I've experienced culture shock living here for over a decade now. There's really nothing that surprises me anymore, except that China right now has become, it's changed. It's changed a lot in the last 12 years since I first got here. It's become very westernized in a lot of senses. Like, there are a lot of American habits that I remember from the US when I lived there that people are copying. A lot of Hollywood tropes that people are trying to copy in real life. And it's kind of weird. It's like there's a cultural shift. I don't really know how to explain it. Maybe I'll make a video about that when I can gather my thoughts. Does China have a homeless issue like LA or New York? No. No, man. If you go to Los Angeles, like go to Hollywood, to like Veterans Row, and you see just rows of tents set up on the streets with all these homeless veterans living there, pretty much camped outside like the VA hospital, and it's weird, man. It sucks. I'm gonna put that out there. There are some homeless people in China, but not to the extent you see in the United States, man. Every city that I lived in and traveled in the U.S., there would be homeless people. There would be beggars all over the place. You'd see. It's a problem. It's a big problem in the U.S. It's not as much of an issue here in China. I've seen it exists. It exists everywhere, but it's not even remotely the same. Let's address some combat sports related issues. Have I heard of Dambe boxing from Nigerian martial arts? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Does doing ab workouts condition you to take body shots? Sort of. What really conditions you to take body shots is proper breathing. Now, if you're doing an ab workout, here's a very traditional workout. Take a Thai pad, have a friend hold it, start doing some sit-ups on the ground. When you come up to the top, and a lot of people do this wrong, they get hit on the bottom. But when you come up to the top, flex the abs and hiss violently and percussively on impact with the pad. Don't let them hit you when you go down, when your abs have relaxed. And you don't have to hit hard. It's just to get an involuntary reaction. And please don't confuse this with something stupid like hanging from a pull-up bar, doing a dead hang, and then having someone punch or kick you in the guts. That'll give you a hernia. We're talking about controlled breathing. Learn to control your breathing, and that is how you're going to learn how to take body shots. But for the most part, don't take body shots. Avoid them. Keep your elbows in, block them, stay out of range, stay on the offensive so you hit the other guy and he doesn't hit you. What else do we have? Do I know any tricks from other combat sports that you could use in boxing? Sure. Two that come to mind right away: wrestling and Bagua Zheng. Okay. One thing wrestlers don't talk about a lot, or sorry, boxers don't talk about a lot, is the power of a cross frame, meaning the arm is this way or this way. If you train with the speed bag, you will use cross frames all the time and you might not even realize it, especially if you're doing trapping on the speed bag, which a lot of people don't. If you read Jack Dempsey's book, he talks about it, and there are a few old school boxing coaches like the Punch Professor who teaches this on his channel. But this cross frame, it's a hand fighting method. Essentially, if my guard is up here and the other guy makes a frame right here with this arm, a frame is a physical object, right? It's a hard bone in front of another bone, preventing that bone from moving. I'm not going to jab you with this arm. I'm not going to hit you with this arm. This arm is temporarily out of play until the position changes. So check out my speed bag playlist. I talk about this stuff quite a bit. As far as wrestling goes, arm drags, yeah, absolutely. Arm drags are one of the biggest things. Made a video on that too. I believe it's also on the speed bag playlist. Is there a good way to increase footwork speed? Coach, yes, take smaller steps. Small steps are quick steps, big steps are slow steps. Connect your feet to your breath as well. Essentially move your feet, your hands, and your breath together and make the steps small, and then they're going to be quick. Why isn't competitive Sanda more popular in the West? Why isn't it more popular anywhere? It's not really that popular in China either, the birthplace of Sanda. There are quite literally about 10,000 people in the entire country, in all the Chinese sports universities, training in Sanda. That's not a lot. That's a drop in the bucket of the population. What time is it in China? In Shanghai, it is 1:44 p.m. Do I offer self-defense courses? No, I'm not a self-defense instructor. I coach combat sports athletes to win cage fights. A good self-defense instructor is a lawyer. Self-defense is a legal term. That means justifying violent action that would have otherwise been illegal. If anybody's telling you any line to the contrary, like self-defense has used my fighting system on the streets, they're lying to you. They're selling you a scam. Most self-defense instructors are scam artists, or they are unintentional or intentional power fantasy enablers. Power fantasy enablers. That's what the self-defense industry is. Bunch of scammers, man. It's a bunch of nonsense. I've seen a bunch of videos lately pop up in my social media feed on YouTube, on Instagram, etc., of self-defense instructors teaching gun disarms where the guy holds the gun to the head and they do their little kung fu move, and none of these guys have ever been mugged ever in their lives. They have never had anybody outside of their power fantasy LARPing drill hold a gun to their head. That's never happened to them ever. I've been robbed at gunpoint 6 times in my life. 6 times in my life. Where did I live when this happened? Argentina, man. It's a rough place, man. It's a rough place. Weren't I mugged once with a gun? No, 6 times. 6 times. And never once did they get close enough with that ranged weapon for me to do some kung fu disarm. They're always a good distance away where you can see that gun, you know what they're capable of, but there's no way you can get to them before they can pull the trigger. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. Self-defense, what a scam, man. The whole industry is stupid. I'm just going to put that out there. It is dishonest. Absolutely dishonest. Hate it. I hate it with a passion. So please do not conflate me with a self-defense instructor. I teach people how to fight, how to win fights. I coach cage fighters to win fights. Am I excited for General Conference? About as excited as you can be for General Conference. For those of you who don't know, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and twice a year they have a General Conference where the leaders of the church give talks, and they talk about church stuff, and everybody tunes in to listen. They're like, hey, let's talks about Jesus and church and stuff like that. Yay! So about as excited as you can be. I don't know why that question was getting spammed. What strongman exercises do I think are best for MMA? Farmer's carries, sandbag. Yeah, those are both great. The first thing I was thinking was farmer's carries. Those are great postural exercises. They're great exercises for overall strength, for developing endurance, and also for developing speed, because you can go fast, or at least as fast as you can while holding heavy weights. And there is some athletic transfer over there as well. For example, and you pick a guy up, and you want to slam him, but you want to take him to your corner first. I'm a Mormon. Yes, surprise. Ooh, tune out and unsubscribe now. A lot of people do. They're like, oh no, you belong to a different religion than me. Unsubscribe. Do you know how many times I've heard that over the years? It's shocking. You don't think and believe exactly what I think and believe. You're not a mirror image of me. Unsubscribed. It cracks me up every time I see that. But man, if everybody in the world was a carbon copy of you, that would be a crappy world, dude. Is Wushu kickboxing effective? Wushu is not kickboxing. Wushu is not kickboxing. It's forms. It's Taolu. It is a forms competition. In modern world, the modern usage of the term Wushu means forms. It is a very specific set of forms established by the Chinese government, by the Chinese Wushu administration, as taught in Chinese universities of sport. It's essentially a performance art. It's not kickboxing. You might be confusing that with Sanda, which means free fight. All right, some people in the West use an older Russian Sun Shou meaning free hand, which is a confusing term. Sanda, free fight. That's Chinese kickboxing. Why doesn't BJJ work when resistance is applied during rolling? This is a question that every single white belt asks themselves. They go to jiu-jitsu class and they're like, okay, the coach just taught me this new move. Let's try it out. He got out. It didn't work. Oh man, he swept me when I was trying to do my thing. It didn't work. Jiu-jitsu sucks. And it's gonna suck for a while until you figure it out. You gotta spend some time at this, man. If I gave you a cello, and I got a cello right over there. My wife plays cello. I don't. But if I handed you a cello and you've never played a cello before and I said, play me this cello sonata by Chopin and play it beautifully, go. Would you be able to do it? No, it would sound like a dying cat. If you got any sound out of it at all, it would sound like a dying moose. You'd probably break the strings or something goofy like that. So why is it when we have this precision instrument, our body, that you've never used before in the context of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, then you go to a Jiu-Jitsu class and the coach teaches you some skills that take time to master, and you think, well, I know how to walk and I know how to move my hands and type and write and eat food and chew and whatever. Why can't I do jiu-jitsu instantly? Why am I not instantly good at this? Why isn't it like a video game where you go through the 5-minute tutorial and then you've mastered combat? No, you gotta log some time in, man. But this question makes me laugh because like every time I roll with new students or new white belts or just people who aren't particularly good at jiu-jitsu, they give me this look in their eyes like, why am I not good at this? I had an experience last night. I was in a jiu-jitsu class, and I walk up to the coach and I ask him a question, a very earnest question, because he's showing a setup to an arm-in guillotine. And it's come to my attention. I just had a light bulb moment. I have never actually tapped anyone out with an arm-in guillotine. The arm-out guillotine, I finish that one all the time. But I've always struggled with the arm guillotine, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to swallow my pride. I'm going to walk up to the coach in front of the whole class and tell him, how do you finish the arm-in guillotine? Because I've never actually done it before. And everybody's like, oh, Ramsey doesn't know how to do this. But the coach got all excited. His eyes lit up, and guess what? I know how to do it now. Because I stopped and I asked a very important question. Asking questions is super important, guys. So, go to class with questions. If you don't have questions in class, formulate some questions. If it's not working, ask your coach, why isn't it working? And you might get a general answer like, well, keep practicing until it does, or you might get something very specific that's going to change it around right there and then. For example, man, this was a brilliant aha moment for me with the arm-in guillotine, and that was, well, you got to get your arm up high, right? High up on the chest, but with a guy's head in there, you can't just pull it in there unless you got super powered arms. But what I realized is I don't have to move his head. I just move my body and I bring my chest, my chest to my hands rather than my hands to the chest. And boom, suddenly it worked. And I was like, whoa, all of these years, 15 years doing jiu-jitsu, I just ignored this weak point in my game thinking, yeah, the arm-in guillotine is just never going to be my move, right? And now, because I swallowed my pride for a little bit and went up and just asked the coach directly, hey, help me figure this out. Problem solved. And now that is a functional move in my arsenal now. So ask the questions. No matter what level you're at or you think you're at or other people think you're at, never stop asking questions, never stop being a student. All right, I missed a ton of questions while pontificating about that. Has anyone dojo stormed your gym? Sort of. I've told this story before. There was a dude, he was like a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he came to one of my Jiu-Jitsu classes with the expectation that he was going to show me up. And I grappled with him, and I caught him in a triangle choke, and he tapped out. And then he got so mad, and he stomped out of the gym. And I've had people come to the gym, and I don't know if they were there to dojo storm, but they were definitely there to try to hurt me when we started to spar. And this happens fairly often. Sometimes it's fairly innocent because people hear sparring and they think fighting, or they don't know how to control themselves. And other times you have guys who know how to fight and they've logged hours into fighting, and they're definitely there to try to hurt you. And so, yeah, just always have your guard up. Never leave your guard down, and never stop improving. Just in case. Because when you're a coach that spars with your students, and in my situation, I think that's something that should be done, because that's the best way to get a gauge on where they're at and what they're doing and what they need to be doing. You absolutely need to be the best that you possibly can. Why? Because you might get hurt and you might get other people hurt. And also, it's very important for a coach, in my opinion, something I always do when a new student comes in. I will always be the first person to spar with that new student. Because again, they might be a wild person who doesn't know how to spar, who has no control, and is going to hurt people. And so if I spar with them first, I'll have a chance to see where they're at, right? To, Because quite frankly, I'm just a much better fighter than most of the other guys at the gym. So when a new guy comes in and he's wild and he would wreck one of the new students, I spar with him first and then I can control the situation so nobody gets hurt. And then teach them, hey, tone it down or you're going to get somebody hurt, including but not limited to yourself. And then we can move on from there. Oh, sweet, we got a super chat with a ha-ha emoticon. Okay, thanks, Edgar. Appreciate that. Thoughts on Dylan Dennis being choked out by a random bouncer who took a Krav Maga class once? I read the headline. I didn't read any of the details of the story. Man, anything can happen in a fight. Anything can happen in a fight. How would I protect myself from Jon Jones in a car with a gun on cocaine? Guys. Man, I feel bad for Jon Jones. I made a video a year ago. Somebody said, what advice would you give to Jon Jones? And sadly, that video is applicable today, and so I reposted it. And some people laughed that I reposted it, but it was seriously heartfelt advice. I love Jon Jones, man. I love that dude, and I hate the fact that he's fallen into this downward spiral in his life. I hate the fact that he's been taken away from the sport of mixed martial arts because of the bad decisions he's made. And I hate the fact that people hate the concept of redemption. I hate that because, you know, I talked a little bit about my religion before, but my whole religion is all about the idea of redemption, right? Because if a human being is not redeemable, then what are we, man? We're nothing. We're nothing if not redeemable. So, man, it is imperative that we learn empathy for other humans, my friends. How long will I be streaming for? Probably for the next 30 minutes. And then I'm headed out to the gym to lift some weights. What other questions do we have? Do people have grappling skills from birth? No, not really. Grappling is a very counterintuitive thing. Fighting in general is very counterintuitive. Our instincts from birth are not great for fighting, but they're good for getting away from danger for the most part. Sweet, we got a super chat from It's Gobi who says, who do you think would win in a fight and why, Sean O'Malley or Demetrius Johnson? Ooh. You know, my gut says Demetrius Johnson specifically because he's got a more aggressive top player type of approach to fighting. I could be totally wrong in that assessment, but that's my initial impression. Fighting is kind of like rock, paper, scissors. You ever go to the gym and spar with a bunch of guys or roll with a bunch of guys, and there's one guy and he's not particularly challenging for you, but then he can beat the guy that beats you. And you're like, what's up with that? Shouldn't I be able to beat the guy that beats me because I can beat him? No, it's like rock, paper, scissors. So man, that's a tough question, but I would, my gut instinct tells me in that situation, a prime Demetrius Johnson would probably win that one. All right, we got a super chat from Tej Devon who says, do you think online courses, video coaching, etc. can be effective? Obvious advantage in the time of COVID. It depends. Depends on what you're learning, what kind of questions you bring into that situation. If you're trying to learn a specific motor skill that involves sparring with another human being, that's not going to be particularly effective. If you are trying to learn a transfer of cerebral knowledge that can be passed on with words or simple instructions or actions on a screen, great, go for it. It's a highly variable question. What kind of online coaching are you looking for? A lot of people are asking me, they send me emails, hey Ramsey, do you do online coaching? I'm willing to pay you for online coaching, and yeah, maybe if the internet improves at some point, that will be a possibility, but the fact of the matter is, the only place in this entire city that I currently have access to a functioning VPN where I can talk to you like this is this particular room in my house, and it's not that big, and it's not even that reliable. So people always ask me, when's the next live stream, Ramsey? And the answer is, the next time my VPN is working. I've had some issues lately uploading videos to YouTube. I uploaded a short video clip of my visit to the UFC Performance Institute, for example, and it ended up being reposted 5 times by YouTube for some reason. What does my shirt say? My shirt says Animal MMA and Fitness. It's one of the gyms I coach at here in Shanghai. So yeah, go check it out if you're in town. A lot of great fighters and coaches working there. And a lot of average people training because it's awesome, and you should. And it's fun. Have I ever been banana splitted? You know, I've never been caught with a banana split submission, but I've used it on a lot of people. One of these days, one of these guys I've caught with the banana split is going to, well, people have attempted it on me. They've attempted it on me, and there are 2 ways to do the banana split. You can do it just trying to stretch the guy out, and if he's inflexible, he'll tap. But if he can do the splits like I can, he won't tap. But if you hold above the knee on one leg, the one you're holding with hands, bend it, and then you twist it in the opposite direction that you twist the other leg, then you've got hip torsion. And then regardless of how well they can do the splits, they're not tapping to the splits, they're tapping to hip torsion. And you can tap almost anybody with that style of banana split. I should probably make a video about that, because that's one of those show, not tell sort of things. So people have tried the banana split on me. I've never tapped because they always tried the flexibility one rather than the torsion version. We've got some super chats here. Let's take a look at these. Bubble Whip says, if size and strength matter so much, why are most heavyweight MMA champions and fighters well below the 265-pound weight limit? Huh. Are they? That's a good question. If size and strength matter so much. Well, what makes you think that these guys who are well below the limit aren't stronger than the guys they're beating? Did you know that size and strength are not the same thing? Saw an interesting video the other day from this fellow. Man, I'm blanking on the name. I wish I could recommend the video to you. But this fellow who had been lifting weights for like 20 years, and he ended up losing about 30 pounds of body weight, but adding like 100 pounds to his lifts. So, man, size and strength actually do matter a great deal. But there are a ton of other variables in fighting. So, really, the answer to the question, Bubble Whip, why? Because size and strength isn't the only thing that matters. It matters greatly. It's not the only thing. The Triad of Performance, my friends. Athleticism, that's your size, your strength, your athletic attributes, your speed, your agility, etc. On one side, we have our psychology, right? Our aggressiveness, etc. And we've got our specificity on the bottom, our technique. What is that? It's a triangle. Okay, all those things matter. They're equally important. And if you're deficient in one or more, you're not going to do too well. Okay, let me go back, see if I can find those other super chats. They kind of vanished from the screen while I was answering this last one. All right, the will to fight says, if you could change anything about MMA, what would you change and why? I would change a couple of the rules. I would get rid of rounds. This is the main thing. This is the only thing I'm going to talk about addressing this question. I would get rid of the rounds. Rounds are a boxing tradition which were added to the sport of boxing a long time ago. It was a well-intentioned rule, but a stupid one. Why? Rounds are stupid. In the original iteration of boxing, under the original rules, when they first added rounds, the rounds were not timed. As soon as one fighter got knocked down, they would stop the round. Again, no time limit per round, but they would stop the round, give the fighter 1 minute of rest, and then the fight would continue until one of the fighters got knocked down again. Then 1 minute of rest, and then he would go back in. And that's why a lot of these old-timey fights went on for 100 rounds, because it was dudes flopping on their butt to get a break, and then getting back up and doing it all over again. Now, in modern MMA, the rounds disrupt the fight. An MMA fight is supposed to be the most honest representation of an actual fight, of an actual hand-to-hand, one-on-one fight. But when we stop the action after an arbitrary 5 minutes and then restart it from a completely different position, there's no honesty in that. That's just stupid. Imagine for a minute, you struggle, you fight to get a takedown, you take damage along the way, you're in a position to win that fight, suddenly the bell rings, ding, now I gotta start all over again. The other guy gets a mulligan for an arbitrary reason because of a stupid boxing tradition in a sport that isn't even boxing. Let's get rid of that. Let's just have one 15-minute round. All right, we got a couple other super chats. Tej Devone says, learn obscure traditional martial arts such as Southern Mantis. I can train in the gym against opponents later. Just want to drill basics. Well, that's great, yeah. Train everything you can. I have a good friend who trains in Praying Mantis Kung Fu, and yeah, he's still sparring in his 50s. Great guy. I've had him on my podcast. Yeah, my friend Anthony, he played the referee in Ip Man 2, if you've seen that. We got another super chat from William Golden, who says, is there any martial arts that you would like to learn or know more about? For example, Hima. Yes, all of them, including but not limited to Hima. I think one thing that interests me a lot, and this probably isn't what you were expecting, is the psychology behind the weird, stupid, ineffective martial arts that develop cults behind them. Do yourself a favor, if you haven't already, and look up Systema on YouTube. And there are like 5 or 6 of you who are like, no, Systema is totally legit. It's just there are a bunch of bozos out there who make stupid videos. But I'm going to tell you, like 99% of all the Systema videos on YouTube are crazy nonsense of guys wiggling around like dying fish, and then their training partners just flopping on the floor for no reason with no contact. And they're like, well, we're just going over principles. This isn't actually representational of combat and blah, 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 blah. And it makes no sense. I want to understand why this happens. I want to understand the psychology of this martial art. Isn't Hima like that Renaissance fighting? Kind of, yeah. It's historical European martial arts, basically sword fighting and fighting with other historical European weapons. Fun fact about the term martial art. The term martial art first came into use in the English language in the 1500s specifically because of European martial arts. That's exactly what the term originally described. Sword fighting. It first appeared in sword fighting manuals. And then, only in fairly recent times, in the 1900s, did martial arts start to drift semantically toward the idea of Eastern martial arts. We have a super chat from Adishj1. Hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. He says, hi coach, how can I start weightlifting without getting injured? How do I find a good gym? Well, first of all, start small, start with body weight, and learn the technique. This is very important, especially with the big lifts, right? Squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing, overhead pressing, and any of these big lifts all have potential to injure you if you do them wrong. So learn how to do them right. This is absolutely imperative. There are some great videos on YouTube on how to do this. There are some terrible ones. There are some well-intentioned ones that are very difficult to understand because there's a lot of advanced jargon in there that you need a degree in kinesthesiology to understand. I would strongly recommend channels like Juggernaut Training Systems. It's one of my favorite channels for lifting technique. And they have some playlists on there. The 5 pillars of great fill in the blank, this type of lifting technique. The 5 pillars of great squatting technique. The 5 pillars of great deadlifting technique. The 5 pillars of great bench pressing technique. And they break it down into digestible, simple lessons that even a novice could understand and benefit from. But even if you are already bench pressing and squatting and you're an intermediate lifter or even an advanced lifter, you can still learn a lot from. And you can, even as a coach, you can learn some great coaching cues and so on from watching these guys. So, yeah, learn the techniques. Spend some time studying. Not just going to the gym and lifting and going crazy, but learn. Okay. Is the banana split the most dominant submission a person can do to another person in competition? Depends on what you mean by dominant. It's a pin. It's a pinning position. So if you were to work into that position in a high school wrestling match, that would be a pin. You've got the legs spladled out there and you got the shoulders on the mat. Hold that for a few seconds, you got yourself a pin, but it's also a great control position in Jiu-Jitsu because one, you've got a very low risk submission attempt right there. If it doesn't work, whatever. You can transition to calf cranks, you can transition to the back, you can go to the twister. You got a ton of options from there. Is it the most dominant as in high percentage? No, absolutely not. That would be the rear naked choke. But is it worth your time to learn? Yes. All right, people are talking about Duk-Yu, DKU, however you say his name. People are saying he's a clown. I thought he was a K-pop band member. What are my thoughts on DKU? I made a video about this guy a few years ago, and it made a bunch of his fans angry, and they were like, no, you don't understand. But yeah, the dude has been promoting a fight that is not going to happen. He apparently came to some sort of agreement with Xu Xiaodong some time ago, and they agreed to fight. However, because of passport reasons, Xu Xiaodong was unable to compete. He's not able to get out of China. I would challenge the guy myself, but because of the COVID situation, can't leave China and can't come back in. Or if I leave China, I can't get back in. So, man. But you know who has challenged DKU, who is totally capable of fighting him and showing up wherever, whenever? Bradley Scott from the Fight Bible. You know who else? Cyrus Washington from Cyrus Washington's channel. That's a highly underviewed channel, man. Cyrus Washington, great striker. Go check him out. Go show him some love. You know, Muay Thai expert, Taekwondo expert, Lethwei expert. Won a bunch of championships, and he makes great content. So go show our friend Cyrus some love here on YouTube. What else do we have here? Do I like wrestling? Yes. Yes, I do. Is often switching stances in shadowboxing or sparring a problem? If so, why and how do I prevent this? If you're going to switch stances, make sure you always have a reason to do it. I missed a super chat. Morcus super chat. Let me back up here. I don't want to miss a super chat. Got one from Adish. Morku. Okay, there we go. Morku sent in a super chat. He says, should Volk have won by TKO? If so, tell my bookie. You know what? I didn't see the fight. Didn't see it. Sorry to disappoint. I'm going to have to go back and watch that one and see how I would have ruled it. So I don't know. What else do we have? How often do I read the Bible and do I tell my students about Jesus? I read the Bible often. Do I tell my students about Jesus? No, that's illegal here in China. Proselyting of any kind is illegal in the People's Republic of China. Proselyting a religion to Chinese nationals is against the law. Can't do it. That's a big no-no. So, no. But here's the thing about preaching the gospel. There's an old saying goes something like this. Preach the gospel always. Use words when necessary. Means it's an action thing, man. Read the Epistle of James, particular James chapter 2, if you want to get the gist of what I'm saying here. I will show you my faith through my works. It's a quote from the Apostle James right there. The man was a man of action. Yeah, go check out my other channel, Ramsey Reads the Bible, if you're not familiar. It's a great channel. I read the Bible, and then I talk about it. Just read a chapter of the Bible, talk about that chapter of the Bible. That's it. That's all that channel is. All right, what other questions do we have? Wait, I live in China? Yes, I do live in China. Somebody's always shocked and appalled by those. You live in China, unsubscribed. All right, we got a super chat from Paul Cherry. Thank you very much. Who says, hi, coach. I'm thinking about getting back into training, and I have bad knees. Do you have any advice for starting again and staying motivated? Also, what do you think of pugilism? Is it good for self-defense? Fighting, thanks for your input. Pugilism means boxing. That's it. Just fighting with your fists. It's not some fancy martial art or historical reenactment. It's boxing. That's just another term for boxing. What do I think of boxing? It's great and you should do it. Is it good for self-defense? Self-defense is a legal term. Once again, go talk to a lawyer about self-defense if you want to learn real self-defense. Now, as far as your bad knees, here's what you need to do. Strengthen your legs, especially strengthen your quadriceps. Why? Because those are the muscles that stabilize your knees. You want stronger knees, you want good knees, you need stable knees. So you need to strengthen the muscles that control the connective tissue there. So you're going to have to start out small, gradually. You're going to have to do exercises that do not aggravate your knees. And you're going to have to pay very close attention to your form. You're going to have to study your lifting form, your strength training form, to the tiny little details. Man, become an expert in movements like squatting and deadlifting, right? Because again, if you do that wrong, that can exacerbate the problem. You do it right, it's going to make everything better. So strengthen your legs, my friend. Strengthen your legs if you have bad knees. Man, I had such bad knees in my 20s. Went through some really bad knee episodes, points where I couldn't even walk or was hobbling around on a cane. You know what helped? Strengthening my legs, and that was the only thing. Thank you for your question. What do I think of karate combat? It's okay. I get asked that question like 17 times every time I do one of these. And I'm like, it's pretty neat. It's okay, I guess. Yeah. All right. I struggle with people, stopping people getting around my guard. What can I do to help with this? I made a video about this, about guard retention. Start watching some boring guard retention videos on YouTube like that one I made that nobody watched. One of the most important things, keep your knees off the floor. This is one of those things, if I were to give you a single piece of advice that's going to change your guard retention, keep your knees off the floor. The second thing, keep your feet and your knees closer to your body. If you extend your knees out there, you're giving the guy longer levers to move your legs away, to control you. And the third thing, keep your feet at 2 different levels, one high, one low, and change it up. If you do those 3 simple things, keep your knees off the floor at all costs, Maybe the guy's pushing down on you. He's trying to do like a cross-side pass or something. Grab your knee and hug it. And this wrist is going to prevent that knee from getting pressed down to the ground. And as he tries to do that cross-side pass over the top of you, something magical happens. You've turned into a roly-poly ball on the bottom, and you can sweep him and do all kinds of cool stuff you never would have thought imaginable before if you were, because otherwise the alternative is get that leg pressed flat to the floor, and then you can't move. Your mobility is gone. So those three things, once again, keep your knees off the floor, keep your knees and your feet close to your body, and change both levels. Again, I made a video about this. A bunch of grapplers with much greater accolades than me have made some excellent videos about guard retention. Start watching the boring videos about guard retention. I mean, man, these are the ones that almost nobody watches on YouTube. People always want to see the how to knock somebody out on the streets in one easy step. Nobody wants to watch guard retention because it sounds boring. And then they go to the gym, they do the activity they actually do in real life, not knocking out bums on the street, but, you know, grappling, sparring in the gym, and everybody passes their guard, and they're like, why is everybody passing my guard? Because you don't know guard retention yet. Why do I stay in China? What else am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? Want me to go to Indonesia? Want me to go to Japan? Want me to go to Mongolia? Do you want me to go to Canada? Do you want me to go to Brazil? I don't have a job in any of those places. I don't have a home in any of those places. I live in China. It's where I live. It's where I've set up my livelihood, my gym, my friends, my family. Everything is here. Give me one good reason to leave. Super chat from Danny the Foot says, hi coach, I just turned 30. I have a decent job, but I work with a lot of young people. It's starting to make me think about my mortality. I feel like it's going to be downhill now. Downhill at age 30. Oh man, how sad is that? That must be a sad feeling. But I think a lot of people, when they reach age 30, they think like, oh man, this is the top. It's all downhill from here. I remember kind of feeling like that, getting around age 30, like, man, this is a weird. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not in my 20s anymore. I'm 30. 30 is like the age that I thought was old when I was young. I'm 43 now. And in many ways, I feel a lot younger than I did at 30. But let's address your concern. I shouldn't laugh at your concern. So, you work with a lot of young people, and it's starting to make you think about your mortality. Good, because you're going to die. We all are. I think about my mortality all the time, constantly. We should. If you don't think about your mortality, you're doing something wrong. It is impossible to kill time without injuring eternity. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, regardless of what kind of shape you're in, whether you're in good shape or great shape, or you feel great or you feel bad, you're gonna die. Regardless of how good you are at fighting or self-defense or whatever, you're gonna die. Come to terms with that. Accept that. A video I would recommend for you to watch. Scared of fighting, prepare to die. Now you're working with kids, not fighting, but watch that video anyway. Watch it. Scared of fighting, prepare to die. You might learn something. What else do we have here? More people want me to finish reading Championship Fighting. That will happen eventually, my friends. Eventually. I'll get around to that. Is Muay Thai bad for street fighting? Everything's bad for street fighting. Street fighting is bad, guys. Don't do it. Seriously. Street fighting is bad. Everything about street fighting is bad. When did I lose my hair? This question again. In my early 20s. like over 20 years ago. Do I still play the guitar? Yuri Boyka 47 asked me that. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I got a whole rack of guitars right over here. Maybe I'll do a guitar video for y'all sometime. What is the most complete martial art fighting style? The one that you spend the most time with. They're not complete martial arts styles. They're not complete martial arts. There are complete martial artists. And there are incomplete martial artists. Tips for cutting weight. I hate cutting weight and I wish it would end, but it is part of the sport. So, okay, here are some tips for cutting weight. First of all, make sure it's a manageable weight cut. You might be tempted to fight multiple weight classes down in a weight class that is unhealthy for you with a weight cut that is going to leave you feeling drained and weak and adversely affect your performance. So don't do that. I would strongly recommend do not cut any more than 10% of your body weight. If cutting 10% of your body weight, if more than that is what is required to make the weight class, fight up a weight class. Don't do it. Say no to that fight. My friend Brandon Ruiz wrote an excellent article on weight cutting, and I don't know what happened to it. It was on a web page somewhere, but I'll summarize it for you. Step number 1, poop. Poop it all out. Poop as much as you can. Why? Because you can hold up to 9 pounds of crap in your colon. Not everybody does, but a lot of people do. Some people raise their eyebrows like, what, 9 pounds of crap in your colon? Impossible. You ever had a severe case of diarrhea? Yeah, there's a lot of crap in your colon. So get as much of that out as possible before you even think about cutting water weight. That doesn't do you any good. It doesn't improve your performance to have poop in your guts. So poop as much as you can. Now, do not take laxatives or something like that trying to force it out. Just poop as much as you naturally can, right? And then you have a better idea of how much water weight you need to cut. After that, it really becomes a matter of cutting water weight, and that's about it. So test out a few different methods to see which one works best with your particular physiology. Maybe it's sitting in a sauna, maybe it's sitting in a hot bath, maybe it is putting on heavy clothes and going for a run on a treadmill or something like that. At the same time, you don't always get the choice of how to cut weight before a competition. Sometimes you will travel to the venue and you'll get put up in a hotel that has a sauna and you're like, okay, cool, everything's all figured out. And sometimes you don't have that option. And man, I did a podcast with my friend Robert. We talked about this subject sometime. Robert Softman, go check it out. It's a 2-part podcast. Maybe I'll put up some clips of that because it's great stuff. And he was planning on doing this weight cut for a fight in a hot bath, which is something he'd done many times before, except the hot water at this particular hotel he was staying in didn't work because it was a cheap hotel. And so he had to spend himself running, which he was not prepared for. And so it was a problem. Travis Stevens did a podcast about this recently with Lex Friedman. And there's a short podcast clip on Lex Friedman's channel where he's talking to judo champion Travis Stevens about this. And Travis said some awesome stuff, which absolutely resonated with me, which I loved. He was talking about a nutrition coach he was consulting with, and the nutrition coach spelled it out. Okay, you're going to eat this and this and this and this, you know, all these amazing superfoods. And Travis is like, let me stop you right there, because when I actually go to a competition, what is available is stuff at a convenience store across the street from the venue. So if my diet plan can't be purchased at a convenience store, it's not going to do me a whole lot of good. So the lesson there is learn to make do with what you have or what you will probably have leading up to the actual competition. Anyway, we have a super chat from the Bugbear, who sends an emoji of a little cartoon dude with a leaf coming out of his head wearing sunglasses waving. Thanks. Thank you, the Bugbear. If you have a... Jason Allen Smith says, Coach, if you have a broken jaw from a sucker punch and every doctor you went to will not fix this issue, what can you do? You got a broken jaw, like your jaw is unhinged. Nobody's gonna... No doctor is willing to reattach it for you. Dude. Where do you live? Is this like an insurance issue? Do you live in the United States and they won't treat you because you can't afford it? You can afford it and the doctors are just unwilling to fix the issue? I don't know how to answer that, man. We got a super chat from Danny the Foot, again, who says, I'm a Christian, and I don't have a specific religion. I just follow Christ and what I believe he stood for. But looking at the world every day shakes me. What for you keeps your belief strong? Well, if you're worried about a belief in Christ and being shaken by the world, stop looking at the world, man. Christ is not of the world. Look to God and live. Think about that for a minute. Where that statement comes from, look to God and live. It's from that Old Testament story of Moses and the camp of Israel. They're out in the wilderness, and the Israelites are like, yeah, let's start being wicked again. And God decides to smite them. He's like, I'll teach you guys a lesson. So he sends some fiery serpents into the wilderness to bite the Israelites. And they're like, we're being bitten by deadly venomous serpents that are killing us. And God tells Moses, okay, here's what I want you to do. Make a brass serpent, put it on a stick, hold it up in front of everybody, and tell them whoever looks at the serpent will live. Whoever doesn't is going to die. So Moses does that. He holds it up. He's like, all right, guys, look at the brass serpent, and you will be cured of the venomous snake bites. And if you don't, you're going to die. And it's a funny story because some people looked and they're like, we're healed. It's a miracle. And other people were like, nope, not going to do it. Not going to be bothered. And they died. It's a weird story without the context of Christianity, if you think about it. Because that brazen serpent in the wilderness is allegorical of Christ. It is a type of Christ. And so if you look to God, you're going to live. If you're looking elsewhere, like, man, not going to look there. I'm going to focus on the world and everything bad that's going on here and all this faith-shaking stuff, that's the direction you're going to go in. It's just like fighting, if you think about it. Here's an analogy for you. Fighting, religious analogy. What we focus on, what we look at, that's what the body tends to travel toward. Our eyes deceive us constantly. And so, for example, if I shoot for a double leg takedown, and I'm looking at the floor, guess where my body goes? It goes in a downward arc toward the floor, and it gets easy to choke me, easy to sprawl on me, easy to stuff that takedown. If I start looking up, my body goes down, but my eyes go up. What happens when I get my shoulder to the hip? There's an upward trajectory in that double leg, and then it's got power, and the guy tries to choke me, and he can't because my eyes are lifted, therefore my posture is unbroken. So, my friend, look to God and live. All right. What other questions do you have? I'd have time for maybe one or two more questions before I gotta skedaddle. Oh, my opinions about the upcoming fight between Rod Tang and Demetrius Johnson. Oh, this is an interesting one. If you haven't heard, they're going to do a special rules fight. So we have this Muay Thai fighter, this well-known Muay Thai fighter, Rod Tang, fighting in a special rules fight against former MMA champion Demetrius Johnson. And the rules go something like this. First round is Muay Thai. I believe they're doing it with the MMA gloves, though. So Muay Thai with little gloves, first round. Second round, MMA rules. Third round, Muay Thai rules. Fourth round, MMA rules. So they're alternating rule sets. What will probably happen? Now, I've heard a bunch of people on the internet say, well, if Demetrius Johnson survived the first round, then he's just going to wrestle Rod Tang into oblivion in the second round. And I don't think that's a terrible thing to say. It's not the worst assessment, but how is Demetrius Johnson going to do in the first round? Huh. I think that's why we're having this fight, so we can find out. We've never seen in a Muay Thai fight. I'm sure we can look up some training clips and see maybe some striking sparring he's done online, but that's not quite the same as fighting a Muay Thai champion. I think Demetrius Johnson's going to do okay. I honestly do. I mean, anything can happen in a fight, but I think he's going to do okay. I'm predicting a second round finish in this fight. Any tips for a striker trying to learn grappling? Yes. Embrace the free hugs that you get in Jiu-Jitsu class. Don't run away from them. Embrace them. Get rid of this whole concept of personal space. Learn to love it. Become comfortable being uncomfortable. Because that's the big issue I see with strikers transitioning to grappling, is the whole thing of, oh, grappling is weird and I'm uncomfortable and I'm not good at it. You keep telling yourself, I'm not good at it, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So stop doing that. Oh, the fight just got postponed. The Demetrius Johnson Rod Tang one, because Rod Tang's got COVID. Man, all the good fights are falling through. All the good fights are falling through. Anderson Silva versus Vitor Belfort. Who would win in a boxing match? I would pick Anderson Silva, to be honest. What do I think of the controversial Oblivion kick? What's the Oblivion kick? Is this a Elder Scrolls 4 reference? The controversial Oblivion kick. Do you mean the oblique kick? You mean kicking the leg above the knee? The oblique kick. Okay, there we go. Why is it controversial? Why is it controversial? Because you don't know how to defend it? You don't know how to deal with it? You don't know how to deal with somebody throwing oblique kicks or side kicks at your knee? It's not that hard. It's shocking how few people understand how to deal with this. Man, there are a lot of gyms out there, and I understand their intent behind saying this, where they will say, we don't even train those kicks because they're so dangerous. And the thing is, if you don't train them, they're going to be extra super dangerous to you. I had a student the other day say, can I throw an oblique kick in sparring? I'm like, yeah, sure. But here's how I want you to do it. While sparring in the gym, just touch. Just touch. Don't put any power behind it. That way, nobody gets hurt, and we still learn how to cope positionally with that movement. So I was sparring last week with Li Jingliang. He's getting ready for a fight. I was over at the Shanghai Performance Institute, and it's a spirited sparring match. You know, he's using some control, but there's some power and pop behind his strikes, and he throws a heavy side kick at my knee. I know how to deal with that. You lift up the weight off your foot a little bit, and your leg slides back, and it's harmless. I made a whole video about this. And some idiots on the internet who've never trained this stuff are like, that'll never work, that'll never work. It works, man. It works. But if you don't train with that stuff, it's not going to work for you. People demonize techniques. Oh, this one guy or these two guys got hurt in a fight because of an oblique kick or a side kick to the knee, so we need to ban them forever and ever. Do you know how many people have had both knees jacked up from guard pulling in jiu-jitsu tournaments? Nobody demonizes guard pulling as being the super dangerous technique, but it's messed up a whole lot more knees than oblique kicks ever have. But nobody complains. Nobody's lobbying to have guard pulling banned from competition. But it's jacked up a lot of people's knees. It's destroyed a lot of knees. I made a whole video about this. The most dangerous technique in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is guard pulling. It's not heel hooks, contrary to popular opinion. It's guard pulling. You know what? A single punch can kill you. A single punch ended my whole career. Put a hole in my head. Gave me a crack in my skull. Blinded me in one eye. A single punch. Should we ban punches from fighting? No. You can't ban fighting from fighting. That's stupid. That's not the point. I'm getting passionate here. Anthony Nguyen sends in a super chat. He says, "Hi, Coach. What do you think of BJJ video courses like The Grappler's Guide by Jason Scully or other DVD courses? My friend and I are both interested in learning BJJ but can't go to gyms due to COVID." Well, if you can't go to gyms, that's what you got to do. You do what you got to do. You get some information from videos or books, you get some friends, you get some mats, you roll, you drill, you repeat. It's what you do. Jason Scully puts out some good content, and he's changed his channel name on YouTube a number of times. So I actually forgot who he was, because he changed his channel a few times. He's on my subscription list, and I was like, wait. It used to be Jason Scully, then it became The Grappler's Guide, then I think it's like, then it was like the guide sites, now it's, I don't know what it is right now. And I'm like, wait, oh yeah, that's Jason Scully. Why change his name again? Anyway, it can be very confusing when YouTubers change their names. But yeah, there's some great information out there. Get to it, man. If your gyms are closed, you know what? I like your attitude, Anthony. I like your attitude because in spite of the fact that the gyms are closed, you're focusing on getting out there and training. Are yoga mats good to grapple on? Not really, because yoga mats are very small, and grappling takes a larger space than a yoga mat. Now, you might be thinking, can I put out a whole bunch of yoga mats? I guess that's better than nothing, but they're going to shift around a lot. They won't stay in place. All right, guys, I've got time for one more question before I gotta go. I'm being very selective about this question. Come on, guys. Send in some other questions besides what's your favorite food. I've already answered that one. I got a voice like yours. Okay, if that's the one we're going to go out on. Do you need thick mats to train on? The thicker the better. Absolutely, the thicker the better. But if you're setting up your own gym, something that is probably even more important than thick mats, if you can afford it, set up a sprung floor under those mats, and you'll get a whole lot more bang out of your buck for any mats you put on top of them. Another thing you can do, if you can only afford thinner mats, but you want more cushion, get some carpet padding. Some places just throw this out. They throw out whole reams of carpet padding. And sometimes you can get it for free, and you can put that under a wrestling mat and increase the absorption, the shock absorption. All right, guys, how to break fall properly. I made a whole video about that. How to break fall outside on concrete. Go check that one out. All right, guys, I got to take off. Thank you for joining me in this edition of Q&A with the Coach live. If you have other questions, please leave them in the comments down below, and I'll take a look at them in the coming days. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.